men's basketball tournament 2013. Just a couple days away, one day from this podcast being live on the web. Interesting tournament we've got going on. Arguably the Big Ten's finest, simply in terms of the basketball quality and the interest involved. The tournament sold out increasingly early. Only tickets available in the last week or so have been standing room only tickets that were released at the last possible moment. Interesting makeup this year. Certainly has all the makings of a great tournament. Ohio State has a rather favorable draw with sort of the bulk of the weight of the conference on the other side of the bracket. Really, Ohio State's biggest juggernaut is going to be to get past Michigan State, possibly in a semifinal to get to the championship. But let's take it bracket by bracket, or rather pod by pod, as they say in the NCAAs, to talk about what our matchups are going to be. We start at the top of the bracket with 8-seeded Illinois. Ohio State, the team that they beat in the regular season finale against 9-seeded Minnesota, a team that Ohio State beat a little bit earlier to start a 5-game winning streak, and a team that really is kind of tapered off at the end there. A lot of Minnesota fans are not particularly happy with Tubby Smith. How do you see this game playing out between these two teams?
I feel like we've heard this story with Tubby Smith before, with coming in and starting quickly and bringing up high expectations. I mean, Minnesota was a top 10 team at one point during the season.
They were.
I feel like, along with half the other Big Ten. I feel like these are two fairly evenly matched teams. They both split the series during the regular season with the road team winning both games, which is kind of unusual in the Big Ten. But I feel like Illinois is probably coming in right now with a little bit of advantage, partly because while both teams are kind of have come in on many losing streaks, Illinois has played really kind of a murder end of the schedule with road games against Michigan, Ohio State, and this really desperate Iowa team clinging to their at-large hope. So I think that could be kind of forgiven, especially since we know that they're really kind of a streaky outside shooting team that can't really manufacture easy baskets for themselves. Well, Minnesota blew games to Purdue and Nebraska, which is really, I don't think, acceptable if you're saying that you're going to be a team that could win a tournament game. When you couple that with the fact that I would imagine that the United Center crowd is probably more pro Illini than anybody else, I would imagine that if Illinois can get any kind of semblance of efficiency from outside, that they should really win this game.
Yeah, I think when push comes to shove, Minnesota is just going in the opposite direction of the Illini. The Illini didn't exactly close super strong themselves, but they do have kind of some takeaway wins that I think really, when push comes to shove, they'll be able to come out of it with that one. So moving on to our next pod, we've got Michigan against Penn State. We know how the last one went. I still think this one, Michigan is easily one of the top. Maybe not. They're probably better than their seed, to be perfectly honest. I don't think this one's going to be close. Any thoughts on Penn State giving them another run for their money?
Neil, I mean, both these guys were pretty close both times. I mean, Penn State won before, so I guess anything really is possible. But I can't see this being like within 15 points. I imagine Michigan's got to be pissed that they're playing on the first day of the tournament. They got the 5 seed, and I mean, I don't know if there's that many more than 5 teams better than Michigan really in the country. I still definitely buy the Wolverines as a team that can make some serious noise down in March. I mean, after New Bill, Penn State on paper should be completely overmatched. I would expect Michigan to win going away.
Yeah, can't agree more. Next one, Purdue, the 7th seed against Nebraska. Ohio State does get the winner of this game. Really a favorable draw, probably the most favorable of the 4 first-round pods. I think I know obviously where you're going, certainly from your bracket breakdown prediction. But tell our viewers and listeners sort of why you're going with the Boilermakers.
It's really kind of a coin flip. I don't think either of these teams are particularly good. I think even for large swaths of the season, they looked really, terrible. Nebraska and Purdue have both been completely run out of the gym. I mean, Indiana beat Purdue, and they're by a combined 11 billion to 6. They were both awful, but both teams have improved a little bit over their last 4 or 5 games. Both these teams managed to steal victories against Minnesota. Purdue has a nice interior. As a team, does a fairly good job rebounding. I think A.J. Hammond's going to be a really kind of interesting player to watch in the Big Ten over the next year or two. He's still kind of raw right now, but 1 through 5, Purdue's starting lineup's a little bit stronger. I think they have some more potential scoring options, and Nebraska really isn't very deep at all. So I would, flip a coin, take the Boilermakers.
Yeah, I think honestly Purdue is still a pretty decent team. I mean, I know they didn't have a great season. Contrary to one man's opinion that Matt Painter is the Big Ten's coach of the year, I think we'll never that's gonna be an SB Nation meme that lives on in infamy for a while. But
I don't intend to forget it over the next couple of weeks.
Nonetheless,
because I'm a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, so there's also this sort of mini trope going on that somehow Purdue is playing their best basketball at the right time because they upset Wisconsin on the road, and that's a great win for Matt Painter and Ryan Johnson and those guys. But I still don't think that's indicative of, I think they won something like 5 of their last 8, or they lost like a decent amount of games. They were trading wins and losses all the way down the stretch.
They're 3-2 in their last 5.
Yeah, that's nothing that screams to me threat. Yeah, I mean, I'm completely okay. I think they will get past Nebraska. Tim Miles has done a good job, but they're still a year away there. But I think all things considered, we're going to see Purdue play Ohio State Friday at 6:30 on the Big Ten Network in Ohio State's Big Ten Tournament 2013 debut. Now, our last first-round pod is Iowa, the 6th seed against the 11th seed in Northwestern Wildcats. Interesting enough, Bill Carmody talked this week about possible job security. He said that that's on his mind after the season that they had. They did have some injuries, a lot of injuries that, various stretches. I thought, honestly, like, given all their relative medical hardships and whatnot, they still managed to play relatively resilient basketball. I thought they looked, Northwestern-y as ever. Now, that being said, I've always been sort of, perplexed or amazed isn't the right word, but the fact that Carmody kept his job despite never really, I mean, I know it's Northwestern, right? The whole NCAA tournament thing is like kind of their identity, especially now that they've made a bowl for the first time in infinity years or whatever. But, it's just a situation where I would be surprised, especially if Iowa does win, which I expect Iowa to. Roy Devin Marble and, just that whole Coach France team is very good. I mean, this is a team that we've talked about could very well, if they're able to get past Northwestern. And they faced Michigan State in the second round. If they beat Michigan State, they're in the NCAA. I think, period. Right?
Well, no. So 2 things. As far as Iowa is concerned, I think so. I think that's really going to kind of depend on what happens, particularly in the SEC tournament, where there seems to be a lot of teams kind of on that bubble too: Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ole Miss. And if
those are all SEC teams, seemingly.
They are. Yeah. And so if a couple of them get hot, or if there's some other upsets and steal a bid and the bubble gets a lot smaller, then Iowa may need to do a little bit more. But I mean, given how tough the league is, I would think they should certainly be really close to that conversation. As far as Northwestern's concerned, they should. I think they should have gone with the new coaching decision 2 or 3 years ago. I don't think you could blame Carmody for how things have gone this year, given not just the horrible injury luck, but the relative youth. I think he's done a good job over the last 2 years of bringing in a slightly higher caliber of player. I think they're Alex Oha is going to be a great player, and that really kind of solved a size issue that Northwestern struggled with. But there's just no excuse when you're 3 miles away from one of the greatest prep recruiting grounds in the country, and you're in the greatest basketball league in the country, at least this season, typically top 3, and you have the academic prestige and profile to recruit nationally. There's no excuse for you to suck every year.
Well, I mean, do you think that I guess basketball is a little different than football, right? So the academic standards maybe don't work quite as hard against them. I mean, certainly we see teams are able to qualify guys at other academically strong institutions. Duke, Notre Dame, those come to mind. Duke's not even in the same league as this. Or I'm sorry, Duke is. Duke certainly is. Notre Dame is not quite in the same league as the Dukes, Northwesterns, and the Stanfords. But if Stanford is a little bit on hard times, but they've certainly done it in the past. If they can get the right guy to come in, and I think that Carmody tried to do the whole Princeton thing, and it just didn't. NIT isn't good enough, especially in the Big Ten. No. I agree with you both. Patrick Chambers is facing kind of a make or break year in Happy Valley next year when Tim Frazier back, and some of the guys that they had a good team for being as bad as they were. Silly as it sounds.
Penn State should be good next year.
Yeah, and so Northwestern is probably going to have to be facing an uphill battle either way. I agree with you. They might as well start over. Definitely like Iowa in that one. Let's run through the second round games real quickly so we can get kind of to more of the I guess the fodder for what goes from there. But so in terms of the second round matchups, going with what we just talked about, we've got Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio State, Purdue, Michigan State, Iowa, right? So we're going chalk. It's a little bit boring, but if there's an upset, if you want to pick one upset in the first round, who do you have? Minnesota, maybe?
No, well, in the article that I wrote yesterday, I think that if there's going to be one upset, I'm going to guess Iowa over Michigan State.
How about the first round, just to put you on your toes here?
Oh, on the very first round?
I mean, given how balanced the Big Ten is and how strong it is overall,
I'm not sure I'm not sure.
Nebraska?
Yeah, I don't think I would call Minnesota over Illinois an upset just because
Sure.
they're really even.
Hmm.
If Nebraska beating Purdue would not completely shock me.
Okay.
I don't think Northwestern or Penn State have credible chances, but what the hell do I know? I mean,
If I'm going to go with
Northwestern.
anybody, I could see Northwestern doing it.
I mean, that would be a very Northwestern thing to do when they have absolutely like nothing to conceivably play for, and Iowa has all these stakes to just beat them like 49-42 would be very,
Right.
very B1G.
All right, so second round, Indiana, Illinois. This should be a really good game. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that Illinois is more than capable of upsetting Indiana. What do you think? It should be a very positively pro Illinois crowd. It wouldn't totally be a shock to see. I'm going to go with Indiana. I mean, I think we're still the best team probably in the country. All the things we said about Tom Crean, and I've been accused of hand wringing and whatnot for calling out Tom Crean for, I've actually kind of changed my take, and we'll say this for another day, maybe an article or something. I don't think Crean is as bad of a guy as I've written about, but in different ways. I think that he isn't as much of a mindless meathead jerk as he came across at face value. I think he's being very manipulative, and I think that he did what he did intentionally. I think he's almost pulling a page out of his brother-in-law Jim Harbaugh's playbook by creating these situations like the Jim Schwartz situation, the Pete Carroll situation, where he's drawing attention to himself by acting like a jerk, knowing that all the cameras will be talking about him. It does make it look like he's defending his players and his program. And so some kids, like some naive 18, 17-year-olds might think it's cool that he's set up for his program, even though we all think that he's a total jerk and a completely unprofessional. And another time, another day, his basketball team is still very well put together.
It's very Lane Kiffian.
Yeah, I think he's pulling straight out of that playbook. Now, whether or not the guy can coach a lick, and he can definitely recruit, remains to be seen. He's made a Final Four with Marquette, so I think obviously there's some merits there. But
He's a good coach.
Those rotations against Michigan was not good coaching. The game may have not been close. It wouldn't have come down to a missed layup if he had stuck to his guns and like put his starters on the bench in the first half for like no reason whatsoever. But that's what let Michigan back into the game in the first place. I digress. Like Indiana over Illinois, feel the same.
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, that isn't shocking. I mean, I think the odds of Indiana winning the entire tournament are only a little bit better than like I guess dropping a kind of winnable game here in the beginning. But 1-5. I mean, unless like Brandon Paul comes out and drops 26 points and they're shooting 44% from 3-point, I think Indiana would be able to win.
Definitely. So let's move on to the 4-5 game, Wisconsin, Michigan. These teams played in the regular season. We saw what Wisconsin won an overtime game. This is a hell of a good game.
It's a hell of a game, yeah.
And the second round of the Big Ten tournament, I think Michigan wins going away. I don't even know if it's going to be that close, to be honest.
I don't know. My plan right now is to be at this game since I'm not that far from the United Center. I'm gonna be getting there like 2 hours for all the games. The games start trying to scalp and everything, and I'm hoping that's going to be worth the money that I'm going to have to kick in. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout. I imagine Michigan might be playing the nobody believes in us kind of card a little bit right now since their stock's kind of fallen a little bit, and athletically I think they could probably. If they could push the pace, they could run Wisconsin out of the gym. But nobody does the slow down, annoying as hell basketball like Wisconsin does. And Sam Decker gets a little bit comfortable. He hits a couple of jumpers. They can really hang around. I think Michigan would probably win, but I don't think anything would really surprise me other than a Wisconsin blowout.
Yeah, that would be shocking. Absolutely.
that would be shocking.
I'm going to take Michigan. Maybe double digits, close to double digits. So I think the game is interest to all our readers and watchers. Ohio State, Purdue. What do you? I don't want to be dismissive of Purdue because I think that, like I said, I think they've got some talent. And they certainly, they had moments when they looked in the last game with Ohio State, but probably the Buckeyes by 6-7-ish is sort of my gut instinct.
I'll if you don't want to be dismissive of Purdue, I'll be dismissive of Purdue. I would think that Ohio State should be able to beat either Purdue or Nebraska by more than 7 points. And my gut is that there's going to be more Buckeye fans there than Purdue fans, even though Purdue's a lot closer to Chicago. And I just the talent disparity and nobody on either of these teams is going to be able to slow down Deshaun Thomas unless he slows himself down. So I would think a low double-digit win would be like the minimum.
Could definitely see this. In your post on Tuesday, you did write that you think Iowa could upset Michigan State. I don't see that happening, but tell real quickly, maybe a little bit more lengthy bumper sticker. Let's just say why could Iowa pull that upset?
So my thinking here is that the initial matchup between Iowa and Michigan State is a game that Iowa actually probably should have won. They kind of gagged it near the end with some missed rotations, some missed field goals opportunities. Michigan State's able to escape by like 3 or 4 points. I personnel-wise, I don't think it's a glaring mismatch. Iowa has the capacity to rebound and be a physical of Michigan State, and they need this game so much more. I'm not sure that Michigan State can really move significantly up a seed line unless they get to the finals. Or maybe even if they win it, whereas Iowa absolutely cannot go anywhere unless they beat Michigan State. So I think coming in there, knowing that they have the capacity to play with them, and knowing that the stakes are so much higher, and there's got to be one weird upset in the second round, I'll go with Iowa.
Okay, so we're down to the Big Ten semifinals, which will take place on Saturday late afternoon, early evening. Indiana, Michigan is what we both have. Man. Twice in 2 weeks, I'll take it. Who do you got in the rematch?
I like Indiana too. I think they probably should have won by more in the final game. They won by 10 points in the first game. As long as nobody gets into foul trouble, I think they can disrupt people on the perimeter. And Michigan doesn't really have the capacity to kind of go down low and out muscle Zeller. But it's for teams that are that good, beating somebody 3 times in a row. I mean, 3 times this season, including 2 in really fairly close succession, and being that emotionally charged. That's awfully tough to do. And for all we know, this could be a rematch of in the Final Four. So it's tough. I think Indiana's a little bit better, but you never know.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go ahead and turn the table on you. I like Michigan in this one. I think they might even win by 6 or 7, to be totally honest. I think this is the game where Tom Crean, I hate this sounds like a sports talk radio thing. He's going to be exposed. But I think
he's a clown fraud.
Yeah, he's a total clown fraud. No, I just think that, all things considered, these teams are very, very even. They're both 2 of the best teams in the country, as we've both said. I think that, given what happened in Ann Arbor, Michigan's going to be especially motivated, and I think that if they come to play, if their 3 or 4 best offensive weapons are all in sync, that while Indiana is very good, national championship good, so is Michigan, and I think that all things considered, this is going to be a game where Tom Crean overcoaches or undercoaches, depending on how you want to look at it. Indiana fans can say whatever they want about me having some kind of vendetta against Crean and going overboard. I don't know how they can possibly not understand that everyone in the country thinks this guy is a total skis bag. Even though, again, I'm not quite in that camp anymore. Like I said, I think he's being calculatedly vindictive. I think that it's all an act.
Dude, I don't think that makes it any better.
No, it doesn't. Maybe it makes it worse. I don't know. I think he's a bad guy. I mean, I'm sticking.
No. I'm with you. I think he's trying to play mind games here. But as a neutral fan, like I didn't really care one way or the other about Crean going into the season.
I mean, like I thought.
But the mind game stuff bothers me more than someone who's just a meathead, because you can't.
See, here's the crazy thing. I mean, I know Jim Harbaugh is a Michigan guy, but I like Jim Harbaugh because he made Stanford not just good, he made them elite at football. That's unbelievable. Like, I know, right? Winning at Marquette. Marquette's won a national title in the last 30 years. So I mean, that's very good. It's admirable. But imagine if Tom Crean had gone to I don't know, Washington State, or what's even more
UTEP.
Yeah, or I'm trying to think. There's he goes to Vanderbilt. Well, they've made the Sweet 16 even. So there's not Northwestern. Yeah, if Tom Crean went to Northwestern,
made them a Sweet 16 team.
No, made him a Final Four team. Is basically what Jim Harbaugh did. I mean, he made Stanford a perennial BCS team. And on top of that, his brand of NFL football, when he's coaching with the Niners, is unbelievably entertaining. So I mean, the guy can act like a total jerk in pro football, and I can still like him because his product is super entertaining. I don't find Indiana basketball quite as compelling. I think Victor Oladipo is unbelievable to watch. Cody Zeller is just so frustrating as a neutral or opposing fan alike. I'm not really a big fan of his game, but he's effective. And certainly Sheehy and the rest of those guys can ball. So I'll go with Michigan in this one. Our other semifinal, we have you have Ohio State against Iowa. I'm going to say it's going to be Ohio State, Michigan State. I assume you have Ohio State over Iowa based on your previous piece. Yeah,
and I think Ohio State could win either of those games. Certainly, Iowa would be a preferred matchup, given how the first 30 minutes of the Ohio State-Iowa matchup went in the regular season. But OSU played Michigan State really close both times. I think they probably should have won the game at Michigan State, if not for some maybe missed opportunities down the stretch. And Thad Matta has been really, really good in the Big Ten tournament. We made Ohio State's made the finals. It feels like almost just about every year now.
Yeah.
It's like something crazy, like 5 out of the last 7 or something like that. So in a coin flip game, I would take Ohio State in that situation.
I'm going to go ahead and again go the opposite. I think that Michigan State presents a lot of matchup issues for the Buckeyes, especially in the interior. I love Deshaun Thomas, but I think that Michigan State's just got too many options to keep Ohio State on their toes. I know that the game in East Lansing was close, but Michigan State to me is built for a tournament like this. I'm going to go ahead and advance them. I've got Michigan State in the final. You've got Ohio State, Indiana. Who do you have between those two? And I'll go ahead and give you mine after that.
I think I would take Indiana over Ohio State. I think we were a little bit fortunate to get the victory there at Indiana, primarily because of foul trouble for Oladipo and Zeller, and that took them out for 10 minutes or so in the first half, and it kind of allowed the damage to be mitigated a little bit, and then maybe got a little bit fortunate with some excellent defense and some less than ideal execution. And if Indiana's playing at their potential, or maybe even 90% of their potential, I think in a neutral court, they're at least 6 points better than Ohio State.
Yeah, don't disagree there. I think if Ohio State plays Indiana or Michigan on neutral court, I have both those teams beating the Buckeyes. Definitely, as a fan, I'd love to see Ohio State make an improbable run to a Big Ten tournament. When we talk about this being Thad Matta's best coaching job, if they win the Big Ten tournament, this is like the greatest coaching job in the history of Ohio State basketball. Regardless, they could lose in the first round of the NCAAs as a 2-15. If they win the Big Ten tournament, that's a heck of a run.
I wouldn't even be mad.
Yeah, I'd be mad, but it would be a different kind of, looking back after the fact, it'd be hard to be too mad. But I'm going to go ahead in my matchup of Michigan State. I'm going to take the Wolverines.
Okay.
I'm sure people don't like hearing that, but I think that they're a great team, and I think that, especially youth in this sort of format lends well. I don't think those guys are going to hit a freshman wall by any means. I think that those guys are so used to playing 3 or 4 games in a single day in the AAU circuit. So I'm gonna go ahead. 4 games in 4 days is nothing for those guys. I'll go with the Wolverines. You've got Indiana winning it. We'll see what happens. Land at Holy Land's Hangout in the Holy Land, episode 13, Big Ten Tournament Preview Edition. Made it to the bitter end. We'll see. Great weekend of hoops coming up, not just in the Big Ten, around the country. ACC, the final real Big East tournament. Even Pac-12 might be some entertaining watching. Who knows? I haven't said that with a straight face. No, I mean there's some interesting teams there.
No, yeah,
balance.
Colorado has occasionally fun to watch.
Oregon's a fun team.
Oregon's a fun team. UCLA is kind of fun in a
neurotic, bipolar kind of way.
Yeah, in a spectacularly frustrating kind of way. Why is Kyle Anderson bad, or why isn't this team in the top 6? I certainly would not want to face against number 6 or number 7 seed UCLA. That sounds terrifying.
Nonetheless, if you're a true college basketball hipster, tune in all weekend to watch the SEC tournament, the 2013 SEC tournament. If you are a true devotee of the sport, I am not going to be one of them. No, I might have the semifinal or championship game on.
Okay, that's not hipster. You want to get hipster? I'm watching the Patriot League final. I want to go see Bucknell. Bucknell can hold off like Colgate or something.
Whatever, man.
There we go.
You know that those leagues have one good team. Does the SEC? No, Florida. I'm just kidding. Pomeroy loves Florida, but Florida has been. Pretty, they just lost to Kentucky, who's very, very, very bubbly. So we'll go and let you go. Hang on the Holy Land. Next week, be back to talk the NCAA tournaments.
Can't wait.
Awesome. Go Buckeyes.
Go Buckeyes.